I wish we were in a timeline where Assassin's Creed games became better with each release, with less bloated gameplay and more interesting historical eras to play around in. I've had a long journey with the Assassin's Creed series, as I grew up playing Prince of Persia on the PS2. I loved Warrior Within, a Souls-like game before there even were Soulsborne games. So when Assassin's Creed was released, knowing that it was the evolution of the Prince of Persia games, I naturally couldn't wait to play through it as well. It wasn't the best, but I loved it. Then later, when the trailer dropped at E3 for the second game with Ezio Auditore da Firenze, my mind was blown. The Renaissance setting of Italy was something very new to my young mind. I loved the atmosphere, the new coat of paint, the new fashion choices, and the interesting historical characters. I couldn't wait to play it, and that game too, I loved. The only letdown was that the E3 demo showed a nighttime scene with fireworks, and for some reason they changed it in the full game to daytime, making it miss all the cool charm the E3 demo showed. Ubisoft does this a lot, where the gameplay reveals look more technically advanced than the actual game they release later. The first Watch Dogs game is a good example of this. Ubisoft uses these fake gameplay bullshots, as they are called, to garner hype for the game, and a lot of developers did it when E3 was still alive and well for the same reason. Lying to customers seems to be the norm in the video game industry. Smaller studios with smaller budgets have made better Assassin's Creed style games than Ubisoft in recent years. So money and staff are not an issue when creating a Ubisoft game, yet these borderline mediocre games are filled with ways to get more money out of your purchase. This seems to be another norm in the industry. I realized while playing through Assassin's Creed 2 to record footage for this video that these games were always products of their time and have aged poorly. Sure, I love Ezio's story, but everything else is clunky. This is from an era of amazing games. It launched in the same year as Uncharted 2, GTA 4, Demon's Souls, and Arkham Asylum, games that influence the industry to this day. I have completed the story in most Assassin's Creed games, except Mirage, but the ones I did play made me believe that they should have ended the Assassin's Creed story quite a while ago. They should not stop making the historical games though. They probably continued the series because it had brand recognition, it made money, and they could ride the name instead of marketing a new IP, but at least they should have stopped making the modern parts. They should have given Mr. Miles the assassin a good ending and then stopped the story right there, and then create a new IP and just add to the top of the cover art,
"From the creators of Assassin's Creed."
This is what Skull and Bones is supposed to be. Removing modernity and the namesake ties solves a lot of problems mechanically and narratively in these games. If you play in an era that is 1,000 years apart from the previous game, there is nothing tying you to that previous game. Especially if you take away the Assassins vs Templars part. You don't have to force Assassins into your game. You can just have a cool game with Romans. Will we ever get a cool Roman game? This doesn't count. And you don't have to write in stupid Animus and DNA plots and lore. Other studios have done this. Ubisoft themselves have done this with Far Cry and Prince of Persia, where one game shares little with the game before or after, reinventing themselves and their games after a few iterations. In Odyssey and Origins, there is still the magic lore and Assassin's tie-ins from the previous games, but they have toned down the modern part quite a bit, which makes these games feel more consistent by not pulling you between timelines after every chapter. The bulk of these games aren't too bad sometimes, and I quite enjoyed Origins and Odyssey. But the stories have problems. Origins tells the story of a father grieving his murdered son, but makes it about misogyny in the last 10% of the game.
Can't believe you trusted a woman to do something of such importance.
Odyssey cuts out the whole mystery and locks it behind the DLC paywall. It's a literal wall in the game. Anyway, why put the Animus thing in there in the first place? Simply to have that DNA sci-fi thing? It seems to complicate things. They could have started this with the first game, just giving us a Templar Crusader story, but maybe that would have been too dry of a story. Probably by putting in some sci-fi, it made it more interesting at the least. But the effort that went into writing and creating the sci-fi parts could have been concentrated more on the core gameplay and story. Anyway, one of the core lores tying all of the Assassin's Creed games together works against the series as a whole. It's a story about a powerful prehistoric civilization with advanced technology that still influences modern day life. Yet somehow this underlying story about the ancients has gotten nowhere over the course of 13 mainline games.
And another thing!
Assassins are libertarians who sometimes push for anarchism to attain freedom.
Do you remember, Altair, what it is the assassins fight for?
Peace. In all things.
Yes, in all things.
Were you not the one to say that nothing is true and everything is permitted?
You do not understand the true meaning of the phrase, my child. It does not grant you the freedom to do as you wish. It is a knowledge meant to guide your senses. It expects a wisdom you clearly lack.
Most assassins work alone and gain rank based on their skill, which means they at least support individual freedom.
You'll see you have been stripped of your possessions, your rank as well. You are a novice, a child once more.
They also own property and money. Ezio and Connor each own a whole village with collections of artwork and equipment, so assassins value personal property. Also, it's called a brotherhood.
Warning, misogyny detected.
The Templars and villains in these games are authoritarian of all shapes and sizes, who will use power and corruption to gain more control over humanity.
There's no true change to be had without comprehensive, systemic intervention.
Chemo for the masses.
Education, or re-education, to be more precise. But it's not easy, and it doesn't always take.
Let me guess. You've got a better solution.
Yet, as time goes on, the Assassin's Brotherhood is being used more and more as the antagonists, or they are just there to be used by the hero, and the lines become more blurred between good and evil. The heroes lack empathy and become more self-serving with each game. Only in 2024 can you make a game where it's normal to raid and steal from a church. And since when is self-sacrifice seen as cowardly?
Kyotoi robbed my father of all honor and dignity. I will win it back. If I give my life, will you spare my clan?
If religion and conquest means nothing to our dear game developers, and they can insert it into their games without reprimand, then where are the games where you play as actual Templar knights, conquistadors, or Roman soldiers fighting for Caesar and country instead of against them like usual? A lot of Western video game companies like Ubisoft are pushing for world economic and political ideals, pushing these ideals onto their customers. As I wrote the script, Ubisoft said that gamers should become comfortable with not owning games. I see this as, you should become comfortable by not owning anything. It sounds like something a Templar boss will say, one who is planning to rob some country or city of its resources. Ubisoft has started pushing against what their heroes have historically fought for. They have become what the bad guys are in their own video games, controlling and virtue signaling with a corrupt underbelly. Abstergo is a self-insert. Thank you for watching and listening.